it's a bit of a fancy honorary title. What does an expert mean? Does it mean that I have all the answers? No. Does it mean that I'm not afraid of finding out what the answers are? Yes, then I will be an expert. I started my company not too long ago because I saw a demand, or let's just say a hole in the real estate industry. And that is that there are no more affordable properties in South Florida. It's just a fact. So I had to make a decision. Do we want to be, does Immobilium wants to be like any other company out there, any other wholesale company that is just fighting over the same deals? And are we willing to fight with people that have more money and more experience than we have? The answer was clear, no. We're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to go into different markets. Markets that are not too far away, markets that are close by, but markets that are going to give our investors, the regular mom and pop, an opportunity to buy a rental property, a solid rental property that is going to bring above average returns at an affordable price. And that's what we did. That's what I've been doing for the past 14 months now. We're in markets, Central Florida, North Florida, and this year we went into Georgia. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're finding properties that are affordable, really good rental properties, and so far it's been working out.
I'll give you a better rate.
Yes, I know you will. But it doesn't matter, because if you're buying it, if you're buying the right rental property, and I always go with rentals because no matter what the market is going up or down, you can rely on rentals. Yeah, you might get a bad apple from time to time, big deal. But 9 out of 10 times, people will stay and they'll pay rent. They have to live somewhere. Let's start with the fundamentals. They have to live somewhere, whether they live there as a rental property or they own it. So it doesn't really matter. A lot of people ask me, I don't think I'm old enough to know where the market is going, but I know one thing for sure. It doesn't matter as long as you do your numbers right and the price is right and you feel it. You gotta feel it. A lot of times people think that this is a numbers game or numbers business. It is up to a certain extent. I also believe in feeling what you're buying. It has to feel right. You have to ask yourself the question: if everything else goes to hell, do I want to own this property for the next 5 years? If the answer is no, drop it. If the answer is yes, pull the trigger.
Is this why you went out of area?
Absolutely.
Tell us more about that.
That's another question I have for you. So how do you choose the states that you go out of town and locate, and how do you choose the specific areas in that specific state? How do you know which is a good neighborhood? How do you maybe do comps?
Well, doing the move to Georgia was actually quite a bit of a fun story, because I didn't intend it to go to Georgia. I read a book which I highly recommend. It's called My Life in 1,000 Houses by Mitch Steven. He's an investor from Texas. It's like a series of books. He's got 3 books so far. Great. Every single one of them, it's amazing. Highly recommended. And he was talking about this concept of seller financing. Now, as many of you have heard, okay, you sell a property, you hold a note. But what struck me the most was the fact that, we couldn't do that in Florida because of the foreclosures. These guys are attorneys, they probably are more well-versed than I am on that. It would take too long. I was just speaking with Miller Jr., and he was telling me it takes about 18 months and about $7,500 to do a foreclosure on a good day if they don't file for bankruptcy, which can delay it up to 3 months.
That's a lot longer.
Yeah. So at that point, I said, well, this whole seller financing story is interesting. Where can I do that I don't have to deal with foreclosure laws? The only 2 states that came to my mind was Texas and Georgia. Now, Texas was way too far out. Like I had to take on a plane, and I had to get familiar with a different market. And then I looked at Georgia. Georgia was right there, which was like 9 hours away on a car, 2-3 hours away on a flight. And then it came the question, okay, if I do this move to Georgia, where do we want to be? Do we want to be in the middle of action, which is Atlanta? It's no different than Miami. Prices are sky high, everybody's going crazy, they're killing each other out there. Or do we want to do the same thing that we did in Florida, which is go a little bit out of the area, 2-3 hours out of the bigger cities where we can get much better deals, cheaper deals, and properties that are cash flowing and you get more return on your money. And the answer was simple. Okay, yeah, we definitely want to do Georgia, because if it takes 18 months to foreclose on a property in Florida, how long do you think it takes to foreclose in Georgia?
2 months.
Wrong.
21 days.
45 days.
It was close.
You were close. 45 days to do a foreclosure. How much money do you think it takes to do a foreclosure in the state of Georgia? Yeah. That's cheating, you know that.
I was just saying $1,000.
It's $1,000 to do a foreclosure. So for $1,000 in 45 days, they're out. The best thing is they do it with attorneys, so you don't even have to file any notices or anything like that. At that point, it was a no-brainer. Now, so we went into Georgia with the idea of seller financing the properties, but what we found was a gold mine. We found out that even though we can do seller finance, which we're doing anyways, the properties that we're getting in Georgia are far greater than those that we were getting in Central Florida and North Florida in terms of price and the price to rent ratio. Just to give you an idea, a quick example, right now the average property that we're buying is about $30,000 and it's renting for $750 to $800. Just to give you an idea. That's why, I mean, at that point it was a no-brainer. We're pulling the trigger.
Rehab or without it?
Rented.
Rehab or not rehab? If you're buying $30,000, I have to do nothing to it?
It's rented. Most of the tenants have been there for 3 years.
So you just keep it.
Yeah, we just pulled the last two or three months we bought about 12 to 15 properties, and about 9 out of 10 have tenants, and most of them have been there for more than 3 years.
What's their incentive to sell them if they're cash flowing market?
I think I was speaking with Hilton at that point. I said, look, if it was up to me, I wouldn't sell any single property that I buy. If you can find me an investor willing to lend me the money at 5%. You know, the only reason why I have to sell every single property that I touch is because, like everybody else, I have office and that's our business model. But if you can find an investor willing to make 5% on their money, I promise you I'm going to change the business overnight. And instead of wholesaling, we're going to stick to rentals. It just makes sense.
That's foreclosure properties. When you are looking at different states as far as maybe not so much foreclosures, but other real estate, did you do any research on that, or where did you go to find the information? Specifically, I have a couple of states in mind, but.
That's a very good question. Keep in mind, the original idea wasn't to do rentals, was to do seller finance when we went out of state. I have a lot of friends in different states that they do what I do, and you know, we talked, and some of them are attorneys that own properties. Some of them are, you know, hard money lenders, real estate investors. And it's as simple as, you know, what are the foreclosure laws in your state? And they fill you in. And the only two states that, in our views, were very solid when it came to quick processing and also minimizing the costs was, I mean, that was a no-brainer. It was Texas and Georgia by far. We also looked at North Carolina and South Carolina. You know, that's typically where most investors go when they leave Florida, as far as like what they buy the rental properties in. But that wasn't our original intention. You know, we really like Georgia. Let me tell you, I personally thought that it would be a good thing going out of state. It turned out to be one of the best things that we ever did. Okay. Something that I would probably do if I were either buying a rental property or doing a rehab, I would run it by a hard money lender. Every time. For two reasons. Reason number one is if you need hard money, like Brad said, you're shopping. Reason number two is because you're gonna get a second set of eyes. You know, these guys, they do valuations for a living. They can tell you, I mean, Brad and I have been on the phone in like 90 seconds. He has told me whether the deal makes sense or not. Okay? So that's one quick tip that I'll give you. It's whether you're buying rentals or rehabs, if you're unsure, even if you've done it 1,000 times, it never hurts to run it by one of these guys and making sure that your numbers make sense. The second tip that I'll give you on the rehabs is this is a funny one. Don't do it yourself. And I don't mean don't do the work yourself and don't supervise it yourself. You know, and I was speaking with Green Jr. here for two reasons. Look, you're in the business of making money. You're not in the business of chasing rehabbers or handyman or contractors, whatever you want to call it. You know, you have to get a system that allows you to get the job done with minimal time invested on it. Like, for example, I'll give you a tip. On my business, I'm doing a rehab right now in Georgia. Okay, if I've been on that property, I went to the property to take a video. That's it. You know, I found a contractor. He owns a couple of rental properties. Try to find a contractor or a handyman that understands what you're doing. You know, anybody can come and do a wall. Everybody can come and paint the house. But if you find somebody that understands what you're trying to do, understand that this is a business and every day costs money, you're gonna save yourself a lot of time. So when you're operating into a city that only has 100,000 people and you start buying 2 or 3 houses a month out of nowhere, you know, people start taking notice, especially realtors, because there's not a lot of cash buyers out there, and they're definitely not buying as aggressively as we are. I literally don't even look at the marketing budget. You know, whatever that is, pay, write the check, move on. Let's get some deals.
You have buyers in place already?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so going back to that story. So we went into Georgia thinking that we wanted to do seller financing. Well, guess what? Because of the price of the properties and how much they're getting in rents, a lot of my Florida cash buyers said, I want one. You know, I said, okay, you take it. So we went from our strategy, which was seller financing in Georgia, to I would say 80% of the properties that we sell now is to investors down here. Major cities like Atlanta, Miami, Charlotte, if you want to go, you know, to South Carolina or North Carolina. Why? Because not a lot of people look at them, you know, as far as buying rental properties. And what I've realized is it takes a little bit of a petting process for the investors to realize that, oh my God, you know, my money can make a lot better returns 1 or 2 hours away in the city that I am. You know. Also, what I realized is it's a lot of a grandfather and father mentality to, oh, I have to buy the properties where I live because I can go by and drive and take a look at it and make sure that it's still there because it's real estate and it can move. Not.